Garanga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nityalala Pravishtam Vishnupara Shutara Shmar Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shri Gurudev Ki Jai Nityalala Pravishtam Vishnupara Ashutara Shmar Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalala Pravishtam Vishnupara Shutara Shmar Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalala Pravishtam Vishnupara Shutara Shmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalala Pravishtam Vishnupara Shutara Shmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalala Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Srila Gaurksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nityalala Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Nityalala Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Śrī Rūpa no Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Śrī Rūpa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Śrī Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Sharda Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai Śrī Swarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Śrī Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Namachay Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Abhishtabhirati Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda Ki Jai Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Hare Krishna and Jai Śrīla Bhakti Ballbha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. His wonderful book, Śrī Caitanya and his associates Ki Jai. Jai Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī Pada Ki Jai. Jai Śrī Rūpa Raghunath Ki Jai. Jai Śrī Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams, Sarveshwari Mataji. And I see there's one person on YouTube or Facebook, so it looks like it's just two of us right now. I'm sure more people will join later on. But yeah, today, if you didn't see yesterday in our program, I'm now pausing our Bhakti Vinod Giti Dhara programs until we send the songbook, the new edition of Gaudiya Giti Gucha, to the printers. We have a lot of work to do on that, so that's all I can really focus on now. So I think it'll take like about a month to finish all the work on that. So for now, we're just going to be reading different things. I'm doing programs where programs where I don't have to prepare anything. I just like show up and start reading. Yeah, and then maybe on Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's appearance day, which will be in about a month from now, we will restart the Bhaktivinoda Giti Dhara program. So Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī Pad's disappearance day is coming up in how many days? I think it's like 3 days from now. Yeah, about that, 3 days. And so I thought it'd be nice. We can read glorifications of Rūpa Gosvāmī from various acharyas. And then on Rūpa Gosvāmī's disappearance day, I thought it would be nice to start reading from Radha Krishna Ganadish Deepika. We could read from Utkalika Valari. We'll see how we do with time, because yeah, now is festival time, Julan and Valari Purnima, Janmashtami, Radhashtami. Now it's just so many different Srila Prabhupada's appearance day, so many different special days coming up. So yeah. All right, let's begin. Let me just Hare Krishna and Hare Krishna Prabhu. Oh, and let's see. Oh, and Haribol Mahibart Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams Prabhu. Very nice to see you here. Okay, so Yeah, we're reading this now in preparation of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī's disappearance day. This is Śrīla Bhakti Ballbha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, Śrī Caitanya and his associates. Okay. Śrī Rūpa Manjari Khyata Yasir Vrindavana Pura Sadhya Rūpakya Gosvāmī Bhutva Prakatatam Iyat. She who is known in Vrindavan as Rūpa Manjari has now appeared as Rūpa Gosvāmī. That's from the Gaura Ganadashtipika 180. Lalita is chief amongst the Sakis who make up Radharani's entourage. And Rūpa Manjari is the foremost among those Sakis who follow Lalita. It is for this reason that Rūpa Gosvāmī is the chief amongst the 6 Goswamis in Gaur Lila. Rūpa Gosvāmī's family tree. In the New Bengali Dictionary edited by Ashutosh Dev, Rūpa Gosvāmī's dates are given as 1489 to 1558 AD, or 1410 to 1479 of the Shaka era. In his earthly pastimes, Rūpa Gosvāmī appeared in a Brahmin family of the Bharadwaj Gotra, which hailed from Karnataka, where they had been kings. His father's name was Kumardev. His mother's name is not known. Narahari Chakravarti Thakur has given the names of 7 generations of his family in Bhakti Ratnakar 540 to 568. Hari Bol Krishna Maya Didi. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur has summarized this family history in his Anubhashya. Sarvagya, a Jagat Guru, was a great soul who was born in a Brahman Raja family of the Bharadwaj Gotra in the 12th century of the Shaka era. His son Aniruddha had 2 sons, named Rupeshwar and Harihar, neither of whom inherited the land holdings. The older brother Rupeshwar went to live in the mountains, and his son Parmanabha moved to Bengal, taking up residence in the village of Naihati on the banks of the Ganga. Parmanabha had 5 sons, the youngest of whom was named Mukunda, who fathered the pious Kumardev, who had several sons, amongst whom were Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Anupam. Oh, so Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami and Anupam, they had more brothers, sons. Like Kumardev's house was in the village of Bakla in Chandradweep. There's a footnote here. It says Chandradweep was the ancient name of a kingdom which now lies in Bangladesh. It included Faridpur, Bakarganj, and the southern parts of the Dhaka and Pabna districts. One second, let me just shift. All right. Okay, sorry. So Kumardev's house was in the village of Bakla in Chandradweep. His house was in the village of Fatehabad in the Jeshore district of that time. 3 of his sons became Vaishnavas. These 3 brothers left the Fatehabad home to live in Ramakeli for their work. Jiva Goswami was born there. As a result of their service to the Nawab, all 3 of them were awarded the Malik title. Mahaprabhu met Anupam for the first time when he went to Ramakeli. When Rupa Goswami abandoned his government duties to go to Vrindavan, he was accompanied by Anupam, who is also known as Vallabha. That's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi, chapter 10, verse 84. Rupa Goswami's first meeting with the Lord. Mahaprabhu met Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami for the first time beneath Kadamba and Tamal trees in Ramkeli village. Rupa Goswami had a large pond sorry, I'm having a hard time speaking. Rupa Goswami had a large pond excavated that still exists, named Rupa Sagar. The 3 brothers were engaged in the service of the contemporary king of Goda, Hussain Shah. Sanatana Gosvāmī was his prime minister, with the title Sakar Malik, while Rupa Gosvāmī was also an important minister with the title Dabir Khas. We have an indication of this from the Śrī Caitanya Charitamrita, where the Shah addresses him with this title. When Mahaprabhu arrived at Ramakeli, surrounded by countless Hindus, with some concern, the Shah summoned Rupa Gosvāmī to ask him who Mahaprabhu was. Rupa Gosvāmī glorified Mahaprabhu in such a diplomatic way that the Shah's mind was put at ease. This is Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya, chapter 1, 175. The king made private inquiries from Dabir Khas, who told him of Mahaprabhu's glories. Vrindavan Das Thakur also confirms definitively that confirms in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that Rupa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī were named Dabir Khas and Sakar Malik respectively. In the Antya Kanda, the Lord revealed his divinity to Dabir Khas and Sakar Malik, and recognizing their greatness, released them from their bondage. He then named them Rupa and Sanatan. So in the same chapter of Chaitanya Bhagavat, verses 171 to 172. Then 2 great fortunate souls came to the spot where the Lord was. The 2 brothers were named Sakar Malik and Rupa. The Lord looked upon them with compassionate eyes. Antya, chapter 9, 238 to 239 of Chaitanya Bhagavat. Rupa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī were eternal participants in Krishna Lila. When the time for them to make their contribution to when the time for them to make their contribution to Gaur Lila, when that time came, Mahaprabhu and his associates arrived in their home village. While performing their earthly pastimes, the Lord and his devotees make an effort to keep their transcendental natures concealed, to facilitate spreading of their teachings to the people in this world. However, when they come close to one another, their actual identity could not be concealed. Thus, as soon as Rupa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī saw Mahaprabhu, though they were naturally attracted to him, they behaved in the manner of conditioned souls in order to show the people of this world how to act. When the Muslim king heard that Mahaprabhu had come to Ramkeli with a company of thousands of Hindus, he was frightened and suspected Mahaprabhu of having a political purpose. A certain Keshav of the Kshatriya caste, who knew about the Lord, explained to the Shah, "Oh, he's just a sannyasi, a beggar who is out on pilgrimage. A few people are accompanying him, but there's no need to be alarmed." The Shah also consulted Rupa Gosvāmī, who told him of Mahaprabhu's glories and succeeded in calming his fears. Being desirous of meeting the Lord themselves, Rupa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī left the palace in the middle of the night and came to Ramkeli. They first encountered Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur, who brought the 2 brothers into the presence of the Lord. Rupa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī placed some grass in their mouths. It's a sign of humility. They placed some grass in their mouths and wrapped cloth around their necks as a sign of humility. They fell down at the Lord's lotus feet, and with tears in their eyes, they made the following humble submission. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 1, verses 196 to 198. They said, "We are millions of times more degraded and fallen. We are more degraded, fallen, and sinful than Jagai and Madhai. We have taken a wicked birth. We have become the servants of Muslims, and our activities are exactly like those Muslims. We constantly associate with people who are inimical towards the cows and Brahmins. Due to our abominable activities, we are now bound by the neck and hands and have been thrown into a ditch filled with the excrement of evil sense enjoyment." When the Lord heard the extreme humility of the 2 brothers, he became compassionate. Even so, it is clear from his response to their statement that they were not ordinary conditioned souls, but his eternal associates. So Mahaprabhu says, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, same chapter, Madhya 1, verses 2:12 to 2:16. Mahaprabhu said, I really had no need to come to Bengal, but I came anyway, just to see the two of you. No one knows my purpose, and so people ask why I've come to this village of Ramkeli. I am very glad that you have come to see me. Now you can go home. Do not fear anything. You have been my servants life after life, so Krishna will deliver you very soon. After saying this, the Lord placed his hands on the heads of Rūpa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī, and they immediately took the Lord's lotus feet and placed them on their heads. The Lord wished to teach that the conditioned soul is delivered by the mercy of the devotees. So he asked Nityananda Prabhu, Haridas, Shrivas, Gadadhar, Mukunda, Jagadananda, Murari, Vakreshwar, and his other associates to bless the two brothers. Now, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, same chapter, verse 224. Sanatan Prabhu then advised Mahaprabhu, Dear Lord, you are going to Vrindavan with an entourage of hundreds and thousands of people, and this is not a fitting way to go on a pilgrimage. As a result of this advice, Mahaprabhu put off going to Vrindavan and turned back after going a little further as far as Kanar Natshala. Ramesh Prabhu just went to Kanar Natshala with Sajjan Maharaj just like maybe a week ago or something. Okay, Rūpa Gosvāmī resigns from the Shah's service. From this meeting at Ramkeli, it is evident that Mahaprabhu intended to teach the people of this world through Rūpa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī. Not long afterwards, an intense spirit of renunciation awakened in the two brothers, and they started looking for a way to extricate themselves from the entanglement in the service of the king. They paid two Brahmins a large sum of money to perform Purushcharan of the Krishna mantra on their behalf. There's a footnote here. So Śrīla Prabhupada, Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he comments, a Purushcharan is a ritual performance which consists of worshipping the deity, chanting the mantra, offering oblations, performing a fire sacrifice, and feeding the Brahmins every morning. Feeding the Brahmins every morning, noon, and evening for a fixed period of time. This is performed for getting desired fruits from the mantra. Such performances are not necessary for the Maha Mantra of the holy name. It's not necessary for the Maha Mantra of the holy name, for by even uttering the holy name once, one obtains all the results to be obtained from Purushcharan. Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī finally resigned from his government service, and he deposited 10,000 coins with a grocer in the capital, Goda, on behalf of his elder brother. Then he took the rest of their accumulated wealth with him in a boat to Bakla Chandradweep, where he divided it up, giving half to the Brahmins and Vaishnavas, and a quarter for the maintenance of his family, while keeping the rest with a trustworthy Brahmin against any future necessity. Then he sent two messengers to Puri to find out when Mahaprabhu intended to travel to Vrindavan by the jungle route through Jharkhand. In the meantime, Sanatana Gosvāmī had stopped his duties in the court of the Shah. Though he claimed to be ill, he was in fact engaged in an intense study of the Bhagavad with a group of scholars. The Shah first sent a doctor to examine Sanatana Gosvāmī, and then, upon learning the truth of the matter, came himself to exhort him to return to work. When Sanatana Gosvāmī showed a continued reluctance to engage in his duties, the Shah had him put in prison. The Shah had him put in prison. The king then departed to invade Orissa. Rūpa Gosvāmī meets Mahaprabhu in Prayag. When Rūpa Gosvāmī received the news from his two messengers that Mahaprabhu had left for Vrindavan, he and Anupam left from Bakla to attempt to join him. He sent a letter to Sanatana Gosvāmī with this message, invoking him to take any necessary steps to free himself and to come and join them. When Rupa Gosvāmī arrived in Prayag, he learnt that Mahaprabhu was there at the house of a South Indian Brahmin. When Rupa Gosvāmī found him there, he was overwhelmed with feelings of love for the Lord. He and Anupam placed a straw between their teeth and repeatedly paid their prostrated obeisances to the Lord, chanting various verses of praise and humility. The Lord felt great affection for the two brothers and said, "Krishna's mercy is beyond description, for he has delivered you from the blind well of sensual existence." Mahaprabhu recited verses which stated that a devotee from a family of dog-eaters is dearer to the Lord than even a non-devotee Brahmin who knows the 4 Vedas, and that a devotee of the Lord is as worshipable as the Lord himself. Then he showed his mercy by embracing them and placing his lotus feet on their heads. The two brothers folded their hands and chanted the following verse to show their gratitude to the Lord for his mercy toward them. They sang, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. I pay my innumerable obeisances to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, who is Krishna himself, whose name is Krishna Chaitanya, whose complexion is golden, and who is most munificent by bestowing Krishna Prem, love for Krishna. And this verse contains Nam, Rup, Gun, and Lila all in one verse. It's a very complete verse. Okay, so Mahaprabhu heard from Rupa Gosvāmī that his brother Sanatana Gosvāmī had been made prisoner by the king, but predicted that it would not be long before Sanatana Gosvāmī escaped and met him. The South Indian Brahmin invited the two brothers to stay with him that day, and they ate Mahaprabhu's prasad remnants. Meeting with Vallabha. When Vallabha, who lived in the village of Arail on the other side of the Ganga, heard that the Lord had come, he immediately rushed to Prayag to meet him and fell to the ground in obeisance to him. Mahaprabhu embraced him, and then the two engaged in conversation about Krishna. Vallabha was astonished to see the ecstatic reactions of the Lord in the course of their discussions. As soon as Rupa Gosvāmī and Anupam saw Vallabha, they paid obeisances to him from a distance out of humility. When he came forward to touch them, they both reacted by saying, "Oh, we are lowly untouchables. You should not contaminate yourself by touching us." They then moved back a certain distance. Mahaprabhu was pleased by their display of humility, while the Vallabha was impressed. The Lord said to Vallabha, "You are an older aristocratic Brahmin, while these two belong to a low caste. You should certainly not touch them." Vallabha was able to divine that there is some hidden meaning to the Lord's utterance, and he asked how they could be considered of a low class when they chanted the name of Krishna constantly. Vallabha then invited the Lord and his entourage to come to his house to take prasad, and Mahaprabhu was happy to accept. They embarked on a boat, but as they crossed the confluence of the Ganga and the Yamuna and the Ganga, Mahaprabhu was affected by the sight of the waters of the Yamuna and began to dance ecstatically in the boat, causing everyone on board a great deal of anxiety and fear. Finally, Mahaprabhu jumped into the Yamuna's waters and had to be helped on board by all the devotees. Vallabha took the Lord to his house, washed his feet, and then sprinkled this water on his own head. Then he performed an elaborate puja of the Lord with a variety of ingredients. Then he fed him with a great feast of numerous preparations and satisfied Rupa Gosvāmī and Anupam with the Lord's remnants. He gave the Lord a mouth purifier and then a place to rest. When the Lord lay down, he sat beside him and served him by massaging his feet. In this way, Vallabha considered himself to have attained the highest good fortune.
the Lord told Ballabha to take something to eat himself. During this time, Raghupati Upadhyaya, a Brahmin from Tirhut, arrived there. The Lord was ecstatic to hear the devotional verses which Raghupati Upadhyaya had composed in glorification of Sri Krishna. Mahaprabhu asked him to say what was the Supreme Lord's superlative form, abode, age, and last of all, what was the supreme object of worship? The form of Shyamasundar is the supreme form. The city of Mathura is the supreme abode. In meditation on Lord Krishna's adolescent form is supreme, and love for Krishna and the mood of the gopis is the supreme attainment, sentiment. That also appears in Padyavali 82. Mahaprabhu was very pleased with this answer and embraced Raghupati Upadhyaya. All the inhabitants of the village became devotees of Krishna upon seeing Mahaprabhu. Ballabha then took the Lord back to Prayag by boat. Now, Mahaprabhu instructs Rupa Gosvāmī. What time is it? Just 7:30. Afraid of attracting crowds, Mahaprabhu stayed only 10 days in Prayag, remaining incognito at the Dash Ashwamedha Ghat. The Lord taught Rupa Gosvāmī the truths about Krishna, devotion to him, and transcendental divine mellows, as well as other devotional conclusions. He compassionately infused all the supreme sentiments of Vrindavan, which were slowly becoming extinct, into Rupa Gosvāmī. The teachings Mahaprabhu gave Rupa Gosvāmī are known as Śrī Rūpa Shiksha. Shivananda Sen's son, Kavi Karnapur, has described this event extensively in his Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nata. He says, Kalena Vrindavana Keli Varta Dukte Titam Khyapaitum Vishishya Kripam Ritena Vishishecha Devas Tatraiva Rupam Cha Sanatanam Cha. In the course of time, tidings of Krishna's amusements in Vrindavan had been lost. To make them known again in detail, the Lord drenched Rupa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī with his mercy. That's from Chaitanya Charitamrita 2:19, 119. Now here's a verse by Kavi Karnapur. But when it says Chaitanya Charitamrita, it means Chaitanya Charitamrita Nata. Right? Yeah. So these are both Kavi Karnapur. So Priya Sarupe Daita Sarupe Prema Sarupe Sahaja Virupe Nejanurupe Prabhure Karupe Tatanurupe Swavilasarupe. The Lord explains the Rasa Shastra to Rupa Gosvāmī in a way that he did to no other person. For Rupa Gosvāmī was the dear friend of Sarup Damodar. His true identity was that of the Lord's beloved. His nature was that of divine love itself. And he was also possessed of natural physical beauty. Mahaprabhu knew him to be like unto himself. Yeah, Mahaprabhu knew him to be like unto himself. And indeed, he was verily the expansion of the Lord. 2:19, 121. So now here's a synopsis of Śrī Rūpa Shiksha. Through Rupa Gosvāmī, Mahaprabhu taught the world about Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes and the process for attaining Braj Prem. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes, through the mercy of Sanatana Gosvāmī, I have learned the devotional doctrines, and by the grace of Rupa Gosvāmī, I have attained the sublime devotional sentiments. That's from Adi Lila, chapter 5, verse 2 or 3. Here's Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Lila, chapter 5, verse 87. He says, the Lord taught about sacred rapture and Braja's pastimes of transcendental divine love through Rupa Gosvāmī. Who can effectively describe the subtleties of Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu's Lila? And now here's the introduction verse to the chapter in which Sanatana Shiksha comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's chapter 19, verse 1. Vrindavaniyam rasake vivartam kale naduptam nijas shakti ukka sancharya rupe vyatanot punasa prabhor vido prakivadokka srishtem. Just as the Lord enlightens the heart of Lord Brahma with the truths about his own self, so did Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu eagerly impregnate the heart of Rupa Gosvāmī with spiritual potency, so that he could revive Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes, which had almost been lost to memory due to the influence of time. While in Prayag, Mahaprabhu gave Rupa Gosvāmī the direct order to write Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This has been stated by Rupa Gosvāmī himself in the introductory verses of that book. He says, Hridiryasya preranaya pravartitoham varaka rupopi tasya hare pada kamalam vande chaitanya devasya. He says, I worship the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Lord Chaitanya Dev. For though I am nothing but an ignorant wretch, I have set out to write this book by his inspiration. Second verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Particularly relevant in this connection is Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Prabhupada's Anubhashya to Śrī Caitanya Charitamrita, Madhya chapter 19, verse 131, on the importance of studying and writing books as an element of devotional practice. He says, the lives of the Goswamis were exemplary in their renunciation. Sometimes they would engage in chanting the holy names of the Lord. Sometimes they would worship him by writing books on divine aesthetics, Bhakti Rasa Shastra. And sometimes they would remember or glorify the pastimes of Lord Śrī Caitanya Mahaprabhu. There is an idea which has some currency amongst the Prakrit Sahajias that devotional practice entails the renunciation of studying and writing devotional scriptures. And indeed, scriptural discussion should be stopped for their pursuits, which are foolish by nature. Those who follow in the footsteps of Rupa Gosvāmī have no tolerance to such ideas. However, if a devotional practitioner studies or writes devotional scriptures for the sake of making money, through which to satisfy his material senses or attain material fame, respect, or any other insignificant and superficial goals, which are classed as distractions or weeds in the garden of devotional service, then he will not attain the auspicious results, which are the real fruit of such activity. A real Rupanuga, a real follower of Rupa Gosvāmī, has no fruit of ambition for such petty results. That's the end of that. Now back to the text. That was Anubhashya of Śrīla Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. When Mahaprabhu was giving Rupa Gosvāmī the prologue to the characteristics of different mellows and instructed him how to get an iota of taste in the fathomless ocean of sacred rapture, he pointed out how difficult it is to attain devotional service to Krishna. So Mahaprabhu said, the jiva, our living entity, is an atomic spark of conscious energy. There are countless jivas who are divided into two categories, Stalachar and Jalachar. Sorry, no, Achal, Sachal and Achal, I forgot what this is. No, Stavar and Jangam, sorry. So yeah. Those that have mobility are again divided into three. Those which move on the land, in the air, and in the water. Amongst those who live on the land, a small number are human beings, of which only a minority accept the Vedic principles. Outcasts such as Pulindas, Mlechas, Shavaras, and Buddhists are in the majority. Of those who accept the Vedas, some do so in name only and engage in sinful activity. Those who practice the Vedic principles are in the minority. Those who are engaged in religious practices towards some fruit of ends form the majority in this group. Okay, so even though such people who follow the Vedas or are religious are very rare, among those rare persons, most of them are engaged, are only working towards getting some fruitive results. Amongst millions of such karma-nishta followers of the Veda, one person may perhaps attain the level of spiritual knowledge. Yet, one of many millions of such jnanis will be an actual liberated soul. And out of millions of liberated souls, it will still be difficult to find the devotee of Krishna. Devotion to Krishna, which is thus so rare, can take birth when a certain merit is attained through great good fortune. The seed to the devotional creeper comes to the mercy of the Lord and his devotee. The creeper of spontaneous ecstatic devotion does not get shelter anywhere in this world, or Viraja, not even in Vaikuntha, in the spiritual worlds, but only in Vrindavan, at Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna's feet are like the wish-fulfilling tree around which the vine of devotion wraps itself and bears fruit. This is described in the clearest and most wonderful manner by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now here's a set of verses. I did a whole program for this on my Vine of Devotion channel, and I go through, I help everybody memorize each verse. So I explain all the words very clearly, and then I do a whole memorization practice, like repeating this line, repeating the next line, then repeating them together, and then doing it 20 times and like that, so that by the end of the video, you'll have the verse memorized. So if anybody wants to memorize these verses that we're going through right now, yeah, you might find that helpful. Okay, so start to Pramanda Pramite Gon Bhagyavanji Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhagavad. After wandering through this entire universe, birth after birth, some fortunate souls receive the seed of devotion, the Bhakti Lata Bij. By the mercy of Krishna and the Guru, they receive that by the mercy of Krishna and the Guru. Upon receiving the seed of devotional service, one should take care of it by becoming a gardener and sowing it in his heart. If he waters the seed regularly by the process of Shravan and Kirtan, hearing and chanting, the seed will begin to sprout. As one waters the Bhakti Lata Bij, the seed sprouts, and the creeper gradually increases to the point where it penetrates the walls of this universe and goes beyond the Viraja river between the spiritual world and the material world. The creeper passes through Brahmaloka, the Brahman effulgence, till it finally reaches the spiritual sky, the spiritual planet Goloka Vrindavan, where it takes shelter of the desire tree of the lotus feet of Krishna. There, the creeper expands greatly and produces the fruit of love for Krishna, while the gardener continues to regularly sprinkle the creeper with the water of hearing and chanting here in the material world. An offense to the Vaishnavas is like a mad elephant that uproots or breaks the creeper, causing its leaves to dry up. The gardener must therefore take care to protect the creeper by making a fence around it, so that the elephant of offenses may not enter. Even so, unwanted creepers, such as the weeds of desire for material enjoyment or liberation from this world, may grow along with the creeper of devotion, of devotional service. Such weeds are countless in their variety. Some examples are Nishidachar, forbidden activity, fault-finding, and duplicity, causing suffering to other creatures, and seeking wealth, adulation, or mundane importance. All these weeds grow alongside the main creeper So all these weeds grow alongside the main creeper as one waters it, causing its growth to be curtailed. As soon as the devotee sees one of these weeds growing beside the original creeper, he must cut it down instantly. Then the real Bhakti Lata can grow nicely all the way to Vrindavan, where it will find shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. So that was from that chapter 19, that was verses 151 to 161. Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Goswami Thakur has commented on this passage in his Anubhashya. Says, through the act of watering the creeper of devotional service by hearing and chanting, weeds may also grow, which results in the growth of the bhakti lata being stifled. If one does not avoid bad association, which is the only way to be free of offenses while hearing and chanting, then one becomes attached to sense gratification. The idea of liberation they become attached to sense gratification, the idea of liberation from material bondage, various mystic achievements, or the practice of deception. One may also become addicted to illicit association of women. They might practice other manifestations of false devotion, like the Prakrit Sahajyas, or they'll become a dweller of the 5 places given by Parikshit to Kali, namely, wherever there is gambling, intoxication, prostitution, animal slaughter, or the accumulation of gold. He starts to take the Vaishnavas to be members of a particular race or caste, aspires for honor due to birth in a respected higher caste, and engages in the chanting of the holy name, mantra, deity worship, and Bhagavat recitation for making a livelihood. He finds dishonest ways of collecting money or makes a show of practicing spiritual life in seclusion while secretly harboring desires for fame and adulation. The desire for mundane reputation may result in his compromising the philosophy to draw a parallel between the material and transcendental planes, or becoming a supporter of the hereditary caste system by professing discipleship to a so-called guru who opposes Vishnu and the Vaishnavas. The sum and substance of these apparent paths is that one becomes intoxicated in the gratification of one's own senses in pursuit of these superficial and destructive ends. One may pretend to be a greatly saintly person or as a religious person, but anything less than pure devotion is a hindrance to attaining service to Krishna. If one uproots the various weeds as soon as one sees them beginning to sprout, then the creeper of devotional service will be able to grow as far as Goloka Vrindavan, where it will bear fruits of divine love. If not, one will end up being cut off from the devotional life and remaining in the material world, whether in higher or lower planets. That person will have to suffer its vagaries. What's vagary mean? Vagary is an unexpected and inexplicable change in a situation of someone's behavior. The vagaries of the weather. Okay. So that was Anubhashya for verses 160 to 161 of this chapter 19. There are 12 devotional sentiments. The 5 primary sentiments are those of passivity, servitude, friendship, parenthood, and to become a consummate. The 7 secondary sentiments are humor, astonishment, heroism, compassion, anger, disgust, and fear. Mahaprabhu says, this is verse 188. Mahaprabhu says, the 5 primary sentiments remain permanently within the devotee's heart, while the secondary sentiments are adventitious, appearing only when there is a cause. The secondary rasas act as supporting elements for the primary sentiments, coming and going under the propitious circumstances. After serving their function, they again disappear, whereas the primary sentiments are permanently established in the devotee's heart. In his teachings to Rupa Gosvāmī, Mahaprabhu established that among the 5 primary rasas, the divine sentiment of conjugal love is foremost. The characteristics of Shantaras are the abandonment of other desires and steady attachment to Krishna. Over and above Over and above these characteristics, the possessor of the serving mood over and above these characteristics, the possessor of the serving mood has his service. The friend has an intimacy, while the parent has a sense of being the protector. The devotee in Madhuras has all these qualities with the addition of serving with her own body. Just as all the qualities of the other principal elements of matter, starting with ether, are added together to be united within the earth, so are all the qualities of the other devotional moods united in the mood of conjugal love. Since all the sentiments are present in Madhuras, it is the foremost. Rupa starts writing his plays. After the Lord had instructed Rupa Gosvāmī for 10 days at Prayag, he prepared to leave for Varanasi. Rupa Gosvāmī was eager to accompany him, but the Lord instructed him to go on to Vrindavan, and that he should take the road through Bengal at some later date to see him in Puri. In keeping with the Lord's order, Rupa Gosvāmī continued on to Vrindavan and stayed there for 1 month. Then he and Anupam set off in search of Sanatana Gosvāmī, hoping to meet him somewhere along the Ganga. However, by the time they reached Prayag, Sanatana Gosvāmī had already left for Mathura by the main highway, so the paths did not cross. When he arrived in Mathura, Sanatana Gosvāmī was able to learn of the news of Rupa Gosvāmī and Anupam from Subudhi Rai. As the two brothers were traveling along the banks of the Ganga toward Bengal, Anupam departed for the eternal abode of Ramachandra. Because of Anupam's disappearance, Rupa Gosvāmī was not able to join the other Bengali Vaishnavas in their annual pilgrimage to Puri, arriving there much later. While in Vrindavan, Rupa Gosvāmī had commenced writing a play on Krishna Lila and had composed several verses of the introductory portion, known as the Nandi. The Nandi verses include the obeisance, the blessing, and the indication of the play's subject matter. Traveling through Orissa, one second, let me just move this. Traveling through Orissa on his way to Puri, he stopped overnight in a village named Satyabhama. There he had a dream in which Satyabhama Devi appeared to him, and she told him to write a separate play in her honor. Now here's a quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya chapter 1, verses 43 to 44. The morning after, Rupa Gosvāmī said to himself, Satyabhama has ordered me to write a play for her. I had started to write a play which described events from both Braj and Dwarka, but now I shall do them separately. When in Puri, Rupa Gosvāmī would not go into the Jagannath temple to take darshan of Lord Jagannath. This was because of his great humility. In fact, though there was no impediment to his going there, he would not even enter Kashi Mishra's house to visit Mahaprabhu out of the same sense of being fallen. Though he had been born in a very respectable Brahmin family, he considered himself to be a Malacha due to his long association with Muslim rulers of Bengal. Therefore, he preferred to stay with Haridas Thakur at Siddhapur. In spite of knowing the supreme eligibility of Rupa Gosvāmī to see Lord Jagannath, Mahaprabhu himself respected his decision and never told him to go see Lord Jagannath, for he wished to teach the world humility through Rupa Gosvāmī's example. This is from Bhakti Ratnakar 1:631. Through Haridas Thakur, the Lord taught forbearance. Through Rupa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī, he taught humility. When Mahaprabhu suddenly came one day to visit Haridas Thakur, he was attracted by Rupa Gosvāmī's humble, pure devotional attitude and embraced him. So Mahaprabhu was attracted by Rupa Gosvāmī's humble, pure devotional attitude and embraced him. The Lord then sat down with him and asked him for the latest news about him and Sanatana Gosvāmī. And they talked about these and other things. On another day, Mahaprabhu came there with all of his entourage, and Rupa Gosvāmī paid his obeisances to all of them. Mahaprabhu, out of affection for Rupa Gosvāmī, had Advaita and Nityananda Prabhus give him their blessings every single day. And Rupa Gosvāmī and Haridas Thakur would get the remnants of Mahaprabhu's prasad through Govinda. And here's a quote from first chapter of Antya-lila, verse 66. It says, so it says, one day, the Lord suddenly said to Rupa Gosvāmī, never make Krishna leave Braj. Krishna never abandons Vrindavan to go elsewhere. As a result of this hint from the Lord, Rupa Gosvāmī understood that both Satyabhama and Mahaprabhu wanted two different dramas. And so he composed Vidagdha Madhav exclusively about Krishna's pastimes in Braj, and Lalit Madhav about the Dwarka Lila. The Lord appreciates Rupa Gosvāmī's poetry. By Mahaprabhu's mercy, Rupa Gosvāmī was able to understand his internal devotional states. While he was in Puri for the Rath Yatra, Rupa Gosvāmī observed Mahaprabhu standing before the chariot, gazing upon Lord Jagannath. As he stood there, the Lord began to recite a verse from the Kavya Prakash in the mood of Radha. The verse, though seemingly having nothing to do with Krishna, that put the Lord in an ecstatic mood, and he began to dance. Other than Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami, no one is able to understand the meaning of the verse. Rupa Gosvāmī, however, had an insight into the Lord's mood, and he composed an original verse which expressed his sentiment. He wrote the verse down on a palm leaf and tucked it into the thatched roof of Haridas Thakur's cottage. Then he went to take his bath in the ocean. While he was gone, Mahaprabhu came by and found the palm leaf. When he read the verse written upon it, he was astonished to see that Rupa Gosvāmī had such a clear intuition into his innermost feelings. And the verse goes like this. Priyaso yam Krishna sahachari kurukshetra militas tataham sarada tadidam ubhayo sangamasukam tatapyanta khelan madhura murali pancham madhuchushe mano me kalindi Polina vipinaya sprihayati. The meaning is, O companion, this is the same beloved Krishna meeting me here in Kurukshetra, and I am the same Radha. And both of us are feeling the joy of union. Even so, my mind wishes to be in the forest by the banks of the Yamuna, where the fifth note of his flute reverberated sweetly in my heart. It's Padyavali 383. When Rupa Gosvāmī returned from bathing, Mahaprabhu gave him an affectionate slap, saying, "How did you know what was in my mind?" Then Mahaprabhu embraced Rupa Gosvāmī tightly. Now this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, same chapter, chapter 1 of Antya-lila, verses 85 and 86. So it says, the Lord took the verse and showed it to Swarup Damodar, asking him to examine it for any possible faults. He asked him, how is Rupa able to know my mind? Then Swarup Damodar answered, I believe it must be the result of your special benediction. One day, Rupa Gosvāmī was busy writing Vidagdhamada. Mahaprabhu arrived unexpectedly and was impressed by his beautiful handwriting, comparing it to a string of pearls. He read the verse that Rupa Gosvāmī had composed in glorification of the holy name and was overcome with devotional ecstasy. This is the verse. Tunde tandavini ratim vitanute tundavali lavtaye karna krodakadambini katayate karnar buddha vyaspriham cheta prangana sangini vijayate sarvendriyanam kritim no jane janita ki arviramritai krishne tivarn varnadvayi. So the meaning is, I do not know out of how much nectar the two syllables of Krishna's names have been composed. Dancing madly on my tongue, they awaken in me the desire to possess many mouths. As they sprout in my ears, I long for millions of ears. And as they enter into the garden of my heart, they overwhelm the activities of every one of my senses, leaving me inert. It's verse 15 of Vidagdhamada. Haridas Thakur, the Acharya of the holy name, was amazed to hear such an extraordinary glorification of Krishna's name. And he started to dance. He said, I have heard the glories of the holy name from many scriptures and sadhus, but never a description like this of the sweetness of the name. That's verse 101 of that same chapter. Wonder if we should add that in the songbook. Well, it's not really not much. So we could fit that. Yeah. Okay. On another day, after visiting Jagannath Dev, Mahaprabhu came to Siddhabakul with his entire entourage, including Sri Swarup Damodar Gosvāmī, Ramananda Rai, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Swarup Damodar read the Priya Soyam verse quoted above to all the devotees. Upon hearing the verse, Ramananda Rai and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya expressed how, as a result of Mahaprabhu's special mercy, Rupa Gosvāmī had been able to understand something that even Brahma and the demigods were unable to comprehend. Then the Lord asked Rupa Gosvāmī to read the Tunde Tandavini verse, glorifying the holy name. All the devotees were delighted. It said, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, the same chapter, verse 122. They say, how often have we heard about the greatness of the holy name, but no one has ever written such a description of its sweetness. Then Ramananda Rai began discussing the subject matter of Rupa Goswami's plays with them. He asked him to hear the verse glorifying the object of his devotion that would appear at the beginning of the play. At first, Rupa Gosvāmī was reluctant to recite his composition in front of the Lord. However, when the Lord insisted that he recite, Rupa Gosvāmī read his verse aloud. Mahaprabhu externally expressed displeasure, saying, your praises are overdone. This is an exaggeration. But the rest of the devotees were overcome with ecstatic love. The verse is the second of the first act of Vidagdhamada. Anarpita charim chira karunaya vatirna kalo samarpaitum unato jvala rasam sabhakti shriyam haripurata sundara dyuti kadamba sandipita sada hridaya kandare spurato vashachinatana. The meaning is, may the Supreme Lord, who is the son of Srimati Shachi Devi, resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, be always situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. He has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow that which was never offered before, the most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the treasure of devotion journey. When Ramananda Rai heard this extraordinary verse, drenched in love for the Lord, he began to praise Rupa Gosvāmī with what seems like 1,000 tongues. Now, this is a quote from the same chapter, verse 192 to 194. Ramananda Rai said to the Lord, I wish I had 1,000 tongues to glorify Rupa Gosvāmī's poetic ability. This is not poetry. It is a fountain of ambrosia. It is the essence of all ultimate realizations, appearing in the form of plays. His description of transcendental love affairs is truly wonderful. My ears and mind are spinning with delight upon hearing them. Once, Kalidas was considered the greatest Sanskrit poet. That is, until Rupa Gosvāmī began to write his transcendental poetry, deeply imbued with the divine sentiments. Okay, it says that there's 5 minutes left in the chapter, but I know I'm going overtime now. So if anybody needs to leave now, Dandavat Pranams, see you tomorrow. But I'm going to continue on. I'm going to read till the end. All right. Rupa and Vrindavan. From Puri, Rupa Gosvāmī returned to Gaudadesh, to arrange for the equitable distribution of his accumulated wealth amongst his families, Brahmins, and temples, and stayed there for nearly a year before going to Vrindavan for good. In the meantime, Sanatana Gosvāmī came to Puri via the Jarikhanda path. He came via the Jarikhanda path and then returned by the same routes to Braj. When the two brothers met again, it had been more than a year since they had seen each other. One second, let me just. So, when the two brothers met again, it had been more than a year since they had seen each other. Rupa Gosvāmī and Sanatana Gosvāmī set an unequaled standard of devotional discipline and an exemplary method of worship. Okay, and this is a quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, verses 127 to 131. These two brothers have no fixed residence, but lie down each night beneath one or the other trees in the forest. They sometimes take a meal at a Brahmin's house, or merely go door to door taking a handful of cooked food from each home. In this way, their meal consists of only some dry bread and fried chickpeas. Their only possessions are their water pots and the quilts and torn clothes they wear. In such a detached state, they constantly chant Krishna's holy names, discuss his pastimes, and dance jubilantly. They engage in Krishna bhajan for almost 24 hours a day, sleeping only an hour and a half. Some days, when they are absorbed in chanting the holy names, they do not sleep at all. Sometimes they write books on the divine raptures of devotional service. And other times, they spend their time talking by thinking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa Gosvāmī is credited with the authorship of 16 books according to Bhakti Ratnakara. 1. Hamsadutta. 2. Uddhav Sandesh. 3. Krishna Janma Titi Vidhi. 4. Laghu Radha Krishna Ganadesh Tipika. 5. Brihad Radha Krishna Ganadesh Tipika. 6. Stava Mala. 7. Vidagdha Madhav. 8. Lalit Madhav. 9. Dan Keli Komudi. 10. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. 11. Ujjvala Nilamani. 12. Prayukta Kyatha Chandrika. Prayukta Kyatha Chandrika. Then 13. Mathura Mahima. 14. Padyavali. 15. Natak Chandrika. And 16. Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Other than these 16 titles, Upadeshamrita, Namashtak, Siddhanta Ratna, and Kavya Kostuba, etc., are attributed to Rupa Gosvāmī. Raghunath Das Goswami stayed in Mahaprabhu's association in Puri for 16 years under the tutelage of Swarup Damodar Goswami. When the Lord and Swarup Damodar both ended their pastimes within this world, Raghunath Das Goswami became so saddened by their departure. Sorry, I just don't want. I'm gonna move up a little bit. Just she doesn't knock everything over. So Raghunath Das Goswami stayed in Mahaprabhu's association in Puri for 16 years under the tutelage of Swarup Damodar Goswami. When the Lord and Swarup Damodar both ended their pastimes within this world, Raghunath Das Goswami became so saddened by their departure that he decided to go to Vrindavan to commit suicide by jumping off Govardhan. After seeing Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami one last time, the two brothers were very affectionate to Raghunath Das Goswami, however, and they would not allow him to kill himself. Rather, they adopted him as a third brother and kept him constantly by their side. Another of the 6 Goswamis was Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, whose father was Tapana Mishra. When Mahaprabhu was in Bengal, he stayed and ate at the home of Tapan Mishra, giving the young Raghunath Bhatta the opportunity to render him service by taking his remnants and massaging his feet, etc. When he grew older, he went to see the Lord in Puri and stayed there for 8 months. During this time, he served Mahaprabhu by cooking various preparations, which gave the Lord great satisfaction. After this, the Lord ordered him to return to Varanasi to serve his aging parents, which Raghunath Bhatta did for 4 years. When his parents departed from the material world, Raghunath Bhatta returns to Puri, where the Lord told him to go to Vrindavan and follow in Rupa Goswami's footsteps. Raghunath Bhatta followed the Lord's direction and Raghunath Bhatta followed the Lord's directions and came to Braj, where, by Rupa Goswami's mercy, he became infused with love for Krishna. He'd recite Srimad Bhagavatam for Rupa Goswami's pleasure. Rupa Goswami and Govindaji. In Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami established a temple for Govindaji, and Sanatana Goswami established one for Madan Mohan. The way that Govindaji appeared to Rupa Goswami is stated in Bhakti Ratnakara. It says, Mahaprabhu had given 4 instructions to Rupa Goswami: to discover the holy places in the Dham that had become invisible to material eyes, to establish deity worship, to publish scriptures on pure devotional service, and to preach the love of the holy name, Rupa Goswami carried out each of these desires of the Lord to perfection, but one. Rupa Goswami was worried about how he could establish deity worship and started wandering through the villages and forests of the Braj area in search of Govindaji, but without success. Sorry. You see, I'm filling up a bucket. Just get wet everywhere. Okay. Okay. So he's searching through the villages and forests in the Braj area in search of Govindaji, but without success. After the failure of these efforts, he was sitting one day by the bank of the Yamuna, upset and burning up with intense feelings of separation from Krishna. Just then, a divine personality, taking the form of a handsome Brajvasi, came up to him and asked him in a sweet voice what was the cause of his distress. Rupa Goswami was attracted by the charming voice and appearance of the Brajvasi and told him everything that had been troubling him. The Brajvasi consoled Rupa Gosvāmī, saying, "There's no cause for worry. Govindaji is secretly residing in the hill named Gomatila, which is the yoga pit here in Vrindavan. Every morning, a cow goes there and joyfully gives him milk." Having told him this, the Brajvasi disappeared. Rupa Gosvāmī thought, one second, I'm just going to move this bucket before Shamali kicks it over. And also the bucket has a hole, so it's going to get probably. Okay. So Rupa Gosvāmī thought, Krishna came here and spoke to me, and I could not recognize him. And then he fainted. Even so, he was somehow or other able to overcome his feelings of loss at having been unable to recognize Krishna, and proceeded to the place that the Brajvasi had indicated. Other residents of the village helped him dig at Gomatila until they found the deity of Govindaji, more beautiful than a million cupids. It is said that this Govinda deity had originally been worshipped by Krishna's own grandson, Vajranath. Here's a quote from Bhakti Ratnakara, chapter 2, verses 404 to 437. After revealing his presence on Gomatila, Govindaji was first served in a simple thatched hut, but later a disciple of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami built a beautiful temple and kirtan hall, etc. In 1590, the king of Amber, Man Singh, the king of Amber, Man Singh, repaired the existing structure and built additions to this temple, with the result that there stood an exquisite sandstone temple. And his Mathura memoir, Grouse, has described this temple in the following words. He says, "The temple of Govindadev is not only the finest of this particular series, but is the most impressive religious edifice that Hindu art has ever produced, at least in Upper India. It is said that the 7-story building was so high that the Emperor Aurangzeb could see the temple's pinnacle from his palace in Agra. Out of envy, he destroyed the upper portion of the building. At around this time, Govindaji was moved first to Bharatpur and then later to Jaipur out of fear of Muslim iconoclasm, and remains in Jaipur to this day." Śrī Rūpa Manjari Pada. Narottam Das Thakur has written and has described Rūpa Manjari, or Rupa Gosvāmī, as his all in all in the following song from Prarthana. I'm not going to sing this song now because we'll sing it. We'll be singing this song a lot soon. So I'm going to skip though. Śrī Rūpa Manjari Pada, She Mora Sampada, She Mora Bhajana Puja. So Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Prabhupada also considered the dust from Rupa Goswami's feet to be the most important thing in his life. He often said that he desired nothing other than this. Ada danastrinam dantar idam yache puna puna shimar rupa padam bhoja dhuli syam janma janmani. This is Raghunath Das Goswami prays in his Mukta Charita. He says, "With bunches of straw between my teeth, I pray repeatedly that I may take birth again and again as a particle of dust at the lotus feet of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī." Rupa Goswami's main Samadhi temple and the place where he performs his bhajan can be found in the courtyard behind the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. Other places consecrated to Rupa Goswami's memory in the Braj area include his place of worship near Nandagram called Ter Kadamba. In this place, Radharani came in disguise of a young girl to give Rupa Goswami milk, rice, and sugar so that he could cook sweet rice preparation for Sanatan Goswami. When Sanatan Goswami tasted the sweet rice, he felt divine ecstasies invade his body. Upon learning how Rupa Goswami had received the ingredients, however, Sanatan Goswami forbade Rupa Goswami to ever cook sweet rice again, so that Radharani would not have to go to any trouble on his behalf. Rupa Goswami's pastimes in this world came to an end in the month of Bhadra, on the 12th day of the waxing moon, the day after Chulan Akadashi. Jai Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Jai. All right, I'm gonna end now. Yeah, because we're gonna be doing lots of programs for Rūpa Gosvāmī, so I'm just gonna end here. I'll do a very quick Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gora Hari Bol. Jai Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari ki Jai, Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju ki Jai, Nityalala Vishnu Vishnupad Ashutara Shutashman Bhakti Narayan Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudev ki Jai. Nityalala Vishnu Vishnupad Ashutara Shutashman Bhakti Vaman Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki Jai. Nityalala Vishnu Vishnupad Ashutara Shutashman Bhakti Swāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai. Nityalala Vishnu Vishnupad Ashutara Shutashman Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki Jai. Wow. Everybody wants to have darshan of Radha Govinda Dev. We were just speaking about Radha Govinda Dev. This is live right now. Radha Govinda Dev. Jai Ho. Jai Ho. Hare Ho. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yeah, there's a devotee who's in Jaipur right now, and every day he gives darshan of Radha Govinda Dev to Janardhan Maharaj, who just came yesterday. All right. My God, where was I in the Jaidvani? I'm so spaced out. Anyways, I'm just doing a short Jaidvani. Jai Sachinandan Gaur Hari ki Jai, Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju ki Jai, Nityalala Vishnu Vishnupad Śrīla Gurudev ki Jai, Śrīla Param Gurudev ki Jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai, Śrī Rupanu Gaudiya Guru Varga ki Jai, Swapashad Śrī Gaur Nityananda Prabhu ki Jai, Śrī Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Gan ki Jai, Śrī Giriraj Maharaj ki Jai, Śrī Tulsi Maharani Bindu Devi ki Jai, Śrī Bhakti Devi ki Jai, Śrī Purnamasi Yogamaya ki Jai, Śrī Gopeshwar Mahadev ki Jai, Śrī Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Jai Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki Jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Ji Gopal Bhattadas Raghunath Goswami Jai. Jai Shri Śrīla Bhakti Ballbha Tīrtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki Jai. His wonderful book Śrī Caitanya and his associates ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyayocha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. See you all tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to read tomorrow. Maybe we can read my Gurudev's glorification of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī. I think that's okay. All right. So thank you so much for joining. And Jai Shri Radhe. Let's see you all there. Dandavat pranams. Anari Krishna Prabhu and Sarveshwari Mataji. Sarveshwari Mataji and Mahi Bharat Prabhu, Champak Mataji. Sorry. Champak Mataji, Mohini, Melody, Vidyalala Sadidi, and all the other devotees joining. Dandavat pranams. Thank you so much. Jai Shri Radhe. Hare Krishna. Okay. Jai Shri Radhe. See you. Trying to end this. What the heck is going on? Sorry. Can't find the, it's not moving. The mouse is not moving.